And we are back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have an open discussion in engineering. I was just watching Misha Sharoudin, and hold on. He wrote the book 360 Nurburgring, and I'm going to plug in his book. Let me see if I can find the actual link. Hold up. See if I can do a visual scan here. He has a sky blue SP Daytona. Very nice. See if I can find it. Oh, there it goes. Okay, here it is. Ah, no. Why did I do that? Sorry about that. Hold up. Because I got an idea and I said, you know what? Why don't we teach a class on it? Okay. You can find the book on www.360roadbooks.com. Let me see if I can put this brightness down. See if you guys are able to see it. Let's hook him up. This is going to be the book example we're going to be using for today. And I had been given a great idea by our producer, Morpheus. Uh, if you get value out of this content and you would like to make a donation to the channel, this is how you can buy us uh, some Starbucks or some Chipotle, maybe some Popeyes. You guys want to get us some Popeyes? This is how you do it. Okay. All right. So now that we got that out of the way, you know what? I never thought about doing that. I think Morpheus started something new. But as you can see, I've been using my portable digital platform as our display because I do have the other computer terminal, but still have to figure out a way to do it remotely. Let me see if I can pull up for today's design study. We're going to go with Ferrari Evoluzione. Uh, let's go GT40. Mm, GT40. We'll go with that. And we'll use that hyperlink to find, was it the 288 origin 959? Yep, this is the car. This is the GTO 288 Evoluzione prototype. And let's see if we can go to the main article. Let's go read the article and let's see if we can pull up the images of the actual car. Hmm. I just had it here. Formula One road cars. Let me go back because I had it It might be in the images of the F40, but let's see. It's not pulling up here for some reason. Let's go 288 GTO. Let's go to open in a new tab, right? Now let's go to that tab and click on the images because we're going to do a design study. And you know what I could do? Let's just try to do it on Google, see if it pulls up any faster. So let's go 288 GTO Evoluzione. Now let's go to images. I need the money shot, which is the rear of the car. Right? So we're going to go ahead and download that. See if I can give you guys some different angles of it. And I want to talk about the design because I have some designs that are similar, and that'll give us a nice piece of design to work with. Let me see if I can use this picture as an example. These cars basically cheat. They cheat the wind. But it wasn't until I was doing a study of the F355, which is considered the most beautiful car ever made. I think I agree. I've always said that. And there is a striking resemblance to the rear fascia of the 355. And I reckon to say this is from the 288 Evoluzione. And it transferred very well with the overall look and mystique of the car. I actually have some of the remixes, the newer versions that are like $1 million plus. And because I have that picture, let me see if I can pull it up. Here's the Michael Schumacher edition. That one's really nice. That one just went to auction at Sotheby's and then it made it to the United States. But we'll use it as an example, kind of like a inspiration, and we can get right into it. This one is called the Evoluto. But there's something about this, like it really out Porsche the Porsche design, in my opinion. So before we get into design, let's start with a little bit of a theory, right? So first of all, welcome to all of you for joining us. Another gathering of the minds. We're going to do a little bit of engineering today. So for our new audience, I designed the car of the future a little under 10 years ago. These are designs I've been working on my entire life. I invested a good amount of money in my time and resources to start this company. And as of right now, is on pause. You know, I don't have the funding that I need to continue um, development. Right now, I'm still designing engineering. I'm still doing research. So I learned with the prototypes, you kind of do it in phases. And this is what makes it so expensive. This is why people that create unique cars, they have to go get financing. They have to deal with corporate America. And normally, that's where problems start. So I've learned a lot about design because the way that I studied design was very unique. I always did it myself. But the reason why we selected this book for today is because this book would be a great help for anybody studying design and engineering. And my theory is that the Nurburgring is probably the best racetrack on planet Earth. I think it only is paralleled. It's only second to tracks like in Asia, which are ideal conditions for competition as far as racing. But endurance racing steps it up to another level, right? Now, if you design a vehicle that can perform very well in the Nurburgring, overall, it's such a great balance. Like it demands so much from the machinery as well as the engineering team and the designers and the drivers that all you need to do is change the climate anywhere else in the world and you're going to get pretty much similar results. So, when engineering, the ultimate benchmark in a sense is the Nurburgring lap times. For example, in the video clip that I showed you, there's a Lamborghini Revuelto going around the ring. So if you've ever had a dream of renting an exotic car, driving it on the Nurburgring, uh, Nurburgring 360 as a book serves as the ultimate guide. Of course, it's for enthusiasts, but with the heart and soul and spirit of an engineer, I know that it's a cheat code. It gives you a lot of insight on the track that can only improve your driving on the Nurburgring. In other words, you can do it on the simulator as much as you want, but if you compare it with the book, you're going to learn something very unique that's going to help you in real world applications. Granted, there's a lot of variables like tire technology, temperature, wind velocity, those things you really can't overcompensate for, right? If you're in a competition, you're in a competition regardless, right? So I wanted to give my friend Misha his little marketing push, and it's just cool to see people that are super successful and are willing to be decent, down to earth, and just open minded, and just basically share whatever they can. Why not? Like it's such a loving thing. Give me one quick second. Now, now that we've established a baseline, let me go to my folder. Let me go to my download and let's do everything from the latest picture to the newest. Let me turn on rotation on my platform, which I rarely use. Oh, but I see the picture won't. Let's see if can I maybe display it a little bit better. Okay. So this is considered by most, not by many, by most, the most beautiful car ever made. I agree, it's very hard to argue with that because this car has everything. It's like a Porsche in the back, it's like a Lamborghini in the front, it's like a Ferrari on the sides. It just has everything. It kind of looks like a Corvette when you look over it. This is the Evoluto. This is a remake of the 355. It is a resto mod, small company, small corporation. This is not our case study, but we are using it as inspiration as best as we can. So I want you to look at the rear end of the car, what they used to call the ducktail or the whale tail. You see how the rear end gurney flap is kind of elevated, but it's kind of in its own element, right? Very much like a 911, just widened. Look at the fender flares where it has breathers, how it matches perfectly with the front fender where the side mirror is and where the actual wheelbase lands. Look how this clearance is to the wheel. See the rim and the tire and the actual cutaway of the bumper? You see how that is like perfect? Look at these fender flares with the vents. But overall, what I want you to look at is the proportions. It's easy to put like a lot of those elements in any design. That's why cars have body kits and things like that. But to get the proportions right is very hard in real life. Even if you draw it, there has to be a compromise for you to make that happen in the real world. Now, I would ask myself, obviously it was to compete with Porsche that they would make a Ferrari look Porsche like in the rear end, right? Hold up. Again, what were they trying to execute? Why is it so beautiful? What is it about it? Well, form and function can be one. So function follows form and form follows function to a certain degree. Now, here is the actual Ferrari 355 first gens um, without any enhancements. This is not a resto mod. This is the original car. How do you know it's first gen? Because the vent where the tail light housing is actually a grill. So it's a built-in wing. So uh, the gurney flap, like this duck bill spoiler, actually works. And if you look at the vent, I did a showcase for Ferrari, and I had a blue one convertible at the time, and I spoke about that. Now, again, look at the proportions. This is a 355. Proportions are important because no matter how much you design something, it's still overall a flat design. But in real life, you have to have the human's touch and eye to be able to scope certain things. And it is no surprise that this is the prototype for the 288 uh, Evolution, right? 288 GTO, which then becomes your F40. Now, I wish I could crop the photo a little bit better, but I can't. I have to do each one by hand. For engineering, I just want you to focus on the fact that the rear bumper is just a mesh with Kevlar and body paint on it. Look at the wing. I'm unable to see it from my angle, but you guys will get the gist of what I'm saying. Let me zoom in on the actual deck lid so you can see some of the intercooler piping, how it's redirected. All those things made it to the F40. But the F40 is not nearly as beautiful. And of course, at the time, it would have been too radical to have this design. Look how the wide body kit is kind of molded into the design. All it is letting all of the air out for downforce. Okay. So again, these are probably some of the most famous pictures. Look how even the blow off valve for the turbo is it's right up there. It's actually built right next to the exhaust. So rear mounted turbos. Again, proportions are today's studies, right? So again, I believe this car is the father of the 355's rear end. This is why it looks so familiar. Of course, Evoluto takes it to an extreme. But do you see the resemblance? It's flat, straight to the point. Of course, they compromise part of the wide body by building the wing. So it didn't have to be, the F40 didn't have to be as wide because the wing didn't have to protrude from the chassis as this does. But again, doing the study on the proportions of the 355 and why it's so beautiful and so timeless, I believe that everything is there. Of course, they want to pay homage to the Testarossa, which was their flagship. Still a very clean design. Yes, it was modernized. They softened up the edges like they did with the Lamborghini Diablo. But I wanted to kind of show you guys that from a design standpoint. Um, when you look at Misha's channel, he has two Civics. He has a EK hatch and an EK coupe. Both of them have K20 motors, naturally aspirated from what I could see. Right next to this Civic, with a K Series engine swap, you have a Ferrari SP Daytona. That says a lot about Honda. That really says a lot about Honda. So shout outs to them. But I'm in a similar journey. I definitely am due to build a car, and I would like to build something this year. What I'm gonna build will be a surprise. Some of you may have an idea, but I have some business things I need to do first, and then maybe I could splurge on something else. But I love the F355. For me, that was like the coming of age car. I had a close friend that had a convertible Spider one. Um, I do not believe it was an F1 car. I do believe it was a gated shift manual, and once again, it is considered to be one of the most beautiful designs ever made. But back to an engineering and design standpoint, right? How could we use a book available to improve driver dynamics or lap times, results? How could we use that to design the car of the future or a car of the future? I would start by studying the powertrain first and how that powertrain could deliver the power on the track and then compare it against the benchmarks. When people speak about Aventador, they speak about how much brute force it uses, and many drivers are used to that because for them, it was technically the second generation of what they call e gear or electronic gear, right? And by the time you get to Revuelto, there's an additional clutch. So all of the force that gives the car its characteristics have been eliminated. Even though it's similar components, Revuelto is in a league of its own. It's very linear power delivery. As a race car driver, I would be against being a linear driver, but linear power delivery is excellent. Also, for up to 10 seconds at a time, the Revuelto gives you 1,000 horsepower, but that's it. Theoretically, it's not a hybrid in the way that the car is being promoted and marketed. Really, what those motors do is allow the car to cheat off the line. And even though the red line of the engine is overall 9,500 RPM, the computer always shifts around 84 to 8,500 RPM. So it preserves itself. If and when you redline to 9,500, traction control automatically goes on because the car spins from 84 and up. But it's also as a safety precaution, it also cuts the electric power. Why is that important? Because all it is, as far as Revuelto, other than the different body panels, is the same or it's very similar monocell. And the only difference is the transmission. So for people collecting these cars, they have to face the reality that it's just like putting an electric supercharger on an Aventador. It's just putting smaller clutch packs and making it dual clutch versus single clutch. The advancement from a marketing standpoint is just the overall shape and design, the looks of it, and the position of the exhaust. You're paying $1 million for that. Now, a base model Aventador like mine's is in the 300 range. A really nice one, probably double, maybe 5 to 600,000. And if you get a specialty, about 3/4 of a million, like SVJS, Ultimate, and countless other variations like the Momo edition, whether or not you get a spider top and things like that. So it comes down to this understanding, especially when you're able to put 20% on a car like this. So you're looking at a down payment of close to 100,000 to put yourself in debt for about, you know, 300,000 to $500,000 just to be a driver of this car, right? My particular example is a 2015, but I'm a big fan of the 2012s. 13s are a little bit better, 14s are better, 15s are the sweet spot, but overall, it's just improvements. Maybe deferred maintenance, where if you get a newer model, it'll be longer until you have to get a vehicle like that serviced. So you have to ask yourself, okay, would I spend $1 million on a Revuelto base model with some modifications? Would I spend $1 million on an Ultimate, an SV, SVJ, or even 3/4 of a million dollars? Would I spend 500,000 or close for a Spider when I can get the same for anywhere from, I've seen them as low as 260 with higher miles, all the way up to 380, 390. And for around 340, 350, you can get a really nice, one or two owner car, low mileage, well taken care of, carbon package if you like those things. I think that the new ones have so many options that it's just like if you get one with carbon, cool. But if not, at the end of the day, you could modify a Honda Civic to beat it. The driving experience will be completely different. And, 7, 8, 900 horsepower is really hard to dial that and deliver that to the ground. And that's another factor as well, that the four-wheel drive system is completely different, where in Revuelto is more of an enhancement. So the true difference, in my opinion, is the fact that I have to agree. I think Temerario is the better car. The more I look into it, even though I like the design much better with Revuelto, Temerario is a V8, but it's twin turbo. And not only is it twin turbo, it's hybrid all-wheel drive. And it's only 980 something horsepower. So the difference is so minimal. Power delivery is going to be completely different because Temerario is forced induction. So it has a little bit of a theater going on in its delivery of an experience for the driver, where Revuelto is just a really modified Aventador. And for Aventador to be a design that's 14 years old at minimum really says a lot, because that means we're going to be stuck with Revuelto for over 10 years. And let's be honest, the front nose treatment for Revuelto is not their best. I think it's a good design. I think it should be a flagship. I think it should be more like of a Grand Tourer, but I don't think should be their end all be all top of the line. I think the front end of Centenario, Sesto Elemento, Essencia, Sion, Countach uh, are overall much better solutions and improvements. Um, with Sion, I think it's the color combination, and if it cannot come from the factory painted because there's limited production, you can always wrap the vehicle to overcompensate for that. But even Centenario, which took time to grow on me, does a much better job. And Centenario gets a bad reputation because some of the color combinations were so opulent that those cars were ordered for a specific person. And if you don't like that person's style, it's hard to like absorb its shape. But even if you look at Aventador S, which is the shark front nose, it it took time to grow on me. I really like it from certain design angles. Again, I go back to the Huracan. I much rather design the Huracan and even Gallardo. And with Aventador, I like the base models because it kind of left a room for the imagination. The other ones are just made to be more extreme, and it makes the car look different. Once again, it doesn't feel like it's, in other words, the 911 is the 911 no matter what generation or variation it is. Some are extreme, some are wild, some are very conservative. But overall, when you see a 911, you know that it's a 911. Some of these iterations look like something completely different. And with Revuelto, it seemed that they couldn't solve that problem. Versus when you look at Miura and when you look at Countach, the original, they really did an outstanding job. How can we figure that out as far as proportions? And shout out to the Sketch Monkey. How can we do this with Countach? Countach looks nice on its own, but it's misunderstood unless it's next to a Miura or next to a Testarossa, because that is time appropriate. Testarossa looks nice, but when you park a Countach next to it, it makes sense. The Countach was more angled, where Testarossa is more luxury Grand Tourer. And it seems that they made the choice not to turbocharge Testarossa so that F40 could deliver that. But again, F40 is V8 twin turbo. So are you telling me that Temerario is a Lamborghini F40? Because that's what I'm starting to think. I think that's what they were going for. And if that's the case, I much rather drive a Temerario and save half the money over driving a Revuelto, even though I like Revuelto. You know, Revuelto's proportions are very military tank like in real life. Um, Even Aventador has a nice size, Murcielago has a nice size. And in a way, when you look at so many cars side by side, you're really paying for the drawing. You know, how they deliver power, technology kind of helps with that. So you have a lot of designs that are confused. Like right now, the most powerful car is the Hennessy Venom F5 Evoluzione. It doesn't even matter how it looks anymore. It was always a nice design. It reminds me of the Raptor design by Celine, the replacement of the S7. There's a code name for it. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But you can pretty much design a car in any way, shape, or form. Look at Ferrari cutting the production of Roma. And if you look at F12 or Portofino, even if you look at Enzo and if you look at La Ferrari, the rear end treatment is not really that far off. When you look at F8 Tributo, 488 Pista, it's pretty much the same thing in a different remix. You know, that's how I kind of think about it. So again, when I look at cars, I think about cars like the GT3 RS, right? I have a friend of mine in the market for a GT3 RS, and they don't know if to go 996.1 or 996.2. 996.1 is still a 3.8 liter. It's still a stroker motor, still 500 horsepower. It's the most beautiful, in my opinion. But even the 3.4 is fire. The 3.2 is fire. Like it just doesn't need anything more than that. You can get one in a nice color combination. 2 years ago, I had an orange one. Oh my God, I cannot believe I let go of that car. I had an orange one at the dealership. I had two Estoro blue ones. Hard to sell them in Florida. Took them to auction. Came to the West Coast. Sold for a record. Yo, like 400,000. I missed out on at least a $15,000 commission because it didn't cross my mind. You know, maybe if the car goes to the West Coast, there'll be a bigger market for it. But even though it's only a 3.6 and a 3.4, and not the 3.8 or the bigger ones, like the newer ones are 4, 4.2, there was something magical about it. Especially the orange one that I had, it had the roll cage only in the back and it was stick shift. Every other one that I had was paddle shifters. And the price was less than $150,000. Fast forward to today, you're spending 400,000. You could buy a newer one for around the same, and it's an even bigger stroker. They're like 4.0s or 4.2s, but they don't have the aesthetic, the headlight design, the bumper design, the side mirror design. Um, in the display that I did for Porsche, I showcase how the slant where the cut is, where the tail lights are on 996.1, they go out and towards the side, pointing towards the rear of the bumper. And on the new ones, they go straight across and down towards the wheel. It's because the wing is different, right? But then there's no need for the tri vents, the back and forth vents on the top. So it loses that. It's paying homage to the older RSs, right? And then the wing looks like it, but it feels out of place. Whereas in 996.1, it looks just right. And you could argue that the taillights are more beautiful in one design over the other. Really, the turbo came with the clear lights, but you can always swap that out there. Parts are the same, just the colors are different. But it seems more aesthetic, more natural, more organic. It doesn't seem, again, proportions are important because proportions give you the stance that when you get out of the car, you look back at it and you say, wow, isn't that special, right? So it gives you a nice example. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter the price point. It doesn't matter how much horsepower, how fast it is, whether it's paddle shifters or a stick shift. Certain combinations, regardless of the price point, are different. And I think a lot of the ones that are going for like $500,000, low mileage, special specs and things like that, just don't have that. So I find it very hard to look at other cars because my heart is with something like that GT3 RS. You know, my brother had a 99, man. Classic, man. My brother had a 99 for $20,000. I can't believe that, yo. 20 grand. The year must have been 2005, 2006. Yeah, the car was like 6, 7 years old. Try to find that car right now for less than half a million. Perfect miles. Good condition, 300,000. Okay condition, still 200. He would have 10x his money. 20 years. Well, after this nonsense with the tariffs, even more now. But proportions are something or some things that have to be learned when you're designing and engineering, not just with computer software, when you're building models on a computer, on a simulator, which we do all the time. But when you're actually in a room where you can scale, you can use clay and kind of form things, it changes everything. Look at Roma going out of production, and it's completely like a Porsche in the back. Even a 928. Look at the AMG GT by Mercedes, still in production, still going strong. I knew that Ferrari Roma would be an instant classic, and now I want it even more. I desire it more than the California or California Turbo, even though it's a little bit more. I like it better than Portofino, even though Portofino is a very nice design. Um, you don't have to spend F12 money if you don't want to. But even F12 you can get for a little over a quarter of $1 million. If you go for a high mileage one, you can get them for less. And 599 GTB Fioriano is still a monster. So it's kind of hard to not fall in love with them when you see how much money you're saving versus other collectibles. And I hate to admit it, but it brings me back to the eighth generation Corvette, which is my current sweetheart. I find it very hard to beat that car and that design for the price. There's just nothing on the market that's better. It's the best American car ever made. It's the best version of the Corvette ever made. It's the most affordable, the most attainable. It made the models before it even more affordable. So it changed the game. It disrupted everything dealing with cars. But again, if you're looking at a Temerario, Technicas are in the 300, 200 range. STOs are in the 3, 400 range. You know, Temerario is supposed to be in the 3, 400 range, but in the streets they go for more. But I like the idea of waiting for uh, Temerario. And I want to do more research on the actual engine. And I would like to know if the design came from removing 4 pistons from the Lamborghini V12 or 2 pistons from the Lamborghini V10. And I cannot wait to see the modified. I know you could get 2,000 horsepower all day from both cars, but I like the fact that it's V8, it's twin turbos, all-wheel drive, all-wheel steering, and it's also electrically powered. So you're giving up 4 pistons compared to Revolto, but you're getting 2 turbos. So even a single turbo would have been crazy. But just quick design and engineering things to take into consideration. Again, when you look at a lot of like box designs for race cars like Trans Am Racing, you take a 95 Mustang and you wide body it like that 288 GTO Evoluzione. It's like a completely different car. And people like the GTD, the new GTD that's on the way. But just think about what you could do with any of those cars using that same design philosophy. You found it in the SLR McLaren with Mercedes. You found it in the Selena 7, where they had a gentleman's agreement that they wouldn't build a car based on wings and whatever secret technologies that they have under the skin of the car. But for us as designers, we have to know that we could take something like, not a Fox body Mustang, but the generation right after, like the 95 Cobras, make them wide body, change the rear axle drivetrain, and you have something very unique. And again, look at all those generation Mustangs from Bosch 302s to the Cobra, the supercharged SVT Cobra, the Celine versions, the Roush versions. There's so many unique versions that you can get at a good price that it's hard to make the jump into a new Corvette. Even at 60, 70, 80,000, it's tempting to go for an E-Ray right around 120, 150 for the Z06. ZR1 is going to go for half a million all day. It's 1,000 horsepower. And it delivers it with natural aspiration, right? Uh, and actually, no, it's internal combustion is what I meant to say because it is twin turbo. But you could twin turbo an E-Ray. You could twin turbo Z06. You could twin turbo a Stingray. And after 5 years, it's fitting to call them by their different names. To me, they're all eighth generation Corvettes. But it's very hard to to kind of select one over the other. They are very special cars. Again, I'm a big fan of the 944 turbos, the E36 M3s with the rear axles, and the new Mustang has that, but the Corvette had that since 96, 97. So fifth generation Corvette, sixth generation. Um, they're from mid-engine designs. They're as close as you can get, and the affordability factor is crazy, man. You could find a C8 for 50, 60,000. They're definitely out there. The LS motor is super reliable. All the parts are interchangeable. They respond very well to modifications. Just a single cam and some turbos, and you got a mean machine, man. But again, there are those gemstones, such as the GT3 RS, first, second gen. It's hard to beat them, man. For 100 under 150,000, it's hard to beat them, man. McLaren has a lot of 670s, 570s, 650s, um, some 570 GTs for like 130, 140. Those are V8 twin turbo rear wheel drive, all carbon construction. They come Spider. It's it's tough right now in the collector's world. Then if you build one, you're not too far off from what's available in the market. Hoovy just bought a 740 IL with the M Sport package for $9,000 at the Barrett Jackson auction, and he bought an M6 convertible 505 horsepower V10 for 11,000. So 20,000. He came out with two M series cars. That's a V10. That's 500 horsepower. That's as exotic as it gets. But the headaches that come with it, is it better to just pro charge a Corvette or a Mustang or Camaro? So it's very exciting, very intriguing. All these changes in the automotive world. I just posted the 296 Speciale and the 296 Speciale A on my LinkedIn. I don't know much about them, but I'm a very big fan of the race car. I like the race car better than the SF90 FXX. I think it's a much better car. Just like I like the 48 race car, the GT3, and the F8 race car. You could still get 458s and three, let me see, 458s and F430 race cars. The only thing is you can only drive them in certain countries because America is very strict on that. But I think those are the ultimate driving machines. So for today's design exercise, I wanted to draw the correlation with the 288 GTO Evoluzione. We know that it's carbon and Kevlar and fiberglass. It's like a mashup of those three things. And now we have the ability to build in carbon fiber, but as simplified as that has been made, I think one of the lost arts of design is not just designing in a computer model, but being able to build the clay mock-ups. You look at places like Thailand, people are building supercars with like a Nissan Sentra, and it's like a Koenigsegg, it's like a LaFerrari, it's something extravagant like that because everything that they lack in for resources, they excel in engineering. So they are excellent at making the mess of a clay model. And because they're community based schools and design teams, they'll have 30 people working on one project. So they can finish a car in a few months. When you're a do it yourself person, it's very hard to do that. As a wild card for my do it yourselfers, think about the beautiful aesthetics of an F body Trans Am from the 80s. If you take out the powertrain and you re strengthen the chassis, a lot of the design is already there for you. It's easier to make them wide body, it's easier to make them mid engine, it's easier to make them all wheel drive. It's easier now more than ever to put a Toyota or Honda powertrain. But you can also do like the Tommy Kyra with the ZZ, which used the RB34 engine. See, RB36, RB32. I think it's the RB34 if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, especially you gurus of the RB series engines, which I love. But it just goes to show you there's a lot of good powertrains, man. Even if you wanted to use a hybrid powertrain, you can get that in today's world from a Toyota Camry, a Prius, a Honda Accord, amongst other brands that use the hybrid synergy drive from Toyota. But it's not going to be cheap or as cheap as you think it is. Is it more affordable than some cars? Yes, it is. But even those affordable super sports cars, they still come with maintenance issues, right? So it puts me in this unique space because I don't want to build a car when I can buy something that already functions for a little bit more and maybe just modify that long term. At the same time, it's very tempting to consider other designs. And I find myself eternally inspired to write about cars such as the eighth generation Corvette because it just gave everybody what everybody always knew was possible, and it just gave it to you whether you like it or not. It's a LS power plant, been around for 18 years in the market, so many different versions, everything's interchangeable. You can get so much power, so much bang for your buck. Parts are readily available. It's rear wheel drive. It has a dual clutch transmission. So if you don't want to buy the new Corvette, you could buy an older one and put a dual clutch, you know, PPG dog box, you know, and it's the same thing, but it's gonna cost you. That transmission is gonna be over $10,000, $15,000. It might not be as reliable, but it can hold the power for a few years, you know. At the same time, a lot of my friends they build Skyline GTRs, right? Those transmissions are pretty good. You know, you can make a plate so that it can fit, and if it's a custom build, then everything's custom. You know, I always would tell people you need the garage space and you need the tools. But the older I get, you also have to take into consideration not just the money, but the time and the headaches. And competition is always changing. You know, there's so many cars I want to mention to you, but if I mention them, I'm afraid I'm going to raise the value of those cars and I won't be able to buy one and build one for myself. But a lot of cars such as the, you know, mid 90s Mustang grew on me and earned my respect. Camaros, definitely mid 90s Corvettes and up. Um you have a lot of choices. And when you have a lot of choices, you have to decide what resonates with you as a human being, regardless of how much it costs. Do I think you should have a budget? Yeah, you should have a budget. And you should give yourself, you know, 25, 30 to 40% more. Most of the time we go over budget. But I'm also at an age where I don't mind dropping off the car for somebody to build it. Even though it costs more, it saves you on headaches. And if you value your peace of mind, it's worth it. And I also like the early 2000s generation of all those cars we just mentioned. There's a lot of things available out there for you to just have fun. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that this helps. I'm going to be sketching some beautiful designs as I listen back to this. So have an amazing day today. May you conquer everything in your path today. May everything that you touch turn into solid gold and solid bars of silver. And beautiful and precious gemstones such as moissanite and laboratory grown diamonds. Always remember to dream big because dreams come true. It happened to me, and I know for a fact it's going to happen to you. Thank you guys so much. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.